The year is 2025. Our planet is sending us urgent messages. We see them in the skies. We feel them in the waters. Unprecedented floods have become a terrifying new reality. Towns and cities, once vibrant, now lie submerged. Homes, memories, and livelihoods are washed away by raging torrents. The human cost is heartbreaking. This is not a distant threat. This is happening now. In parts of Asia, monsoon rains, once life-giving, now bring destruction. Rivers have swollen to monstrous sizes, bursting their banks with furious power. Millions are displaced, seeking refuge on higher ground. The economic toll is staggering. Across the Atlantic, in Europe, ancient towns have faced similar fates. Rivers that have flowed peacefully for centuries transformed into destructive forces. Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, nations known for their engineering prowess, were overwhelmed. The suddenness and ferocity of these flash floods caught many unaware. Our world is changing, and the waters are rising. Why is this happening? Why now with such increasing ferocity? The answer lies in our own actions. For decades, scientists have warned us. The Earth's climate is changing, and human activity is the primary driver. We have pumped vast quantities of greenhouse gases into our atmosphere. Carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide. These gases act like a warming blanket. They trap heat from the sun, causing the planet's temperature to rise steadily. The consequences of this warming are now unfolding before our very eyes. The link between a warming planet and extreme weather is direct and undeniable. As we add more heat to the system, the engine runs faster, more erratically. This increased energy manifests in more powerful storms, more intense rainfall, and more extreme temperatures. The delicate balance that has governed our planet's weather for millennia is being disrupted. The extreme weather events we are experiencing are not natural variations alone. They bear the clear fingerprint of human-induced climate change. The carbon dioxide released from burning fossil fuels has accumulated in the atmosphere. Its concentration is now higher than at any point in at least the last 800,000 years. This relentless increase is directly correlated with the rise in global average temperatures. How does a warmer world lead to such biblical deluges? The physics are straightforward yet impactful. Warmer air has a greater capacity to hold moisture. For every degree Celsius of warming, the atmosphere can hold approximately 7% more water vapor. As our planet heats up, the air above us becomes thirstier, capable of absorbing more water. This means that when conditions are right for rain, there is simply more water available to fall. And fall it does, often in torrential downpours that overwhelm our natural and built environments. This increased moisture content in the atmosphere is like loading a storm with extra ammunition. When storm systems develop, they draw upon this abundant supply of water vapor. The result is not just more rain, but more intense rain. Rainfall rates become higher, meaning more water falls in a shorter period. This is precisely what we are observing in many parts of the world. Storms that might once have delivered moderate rainfall now unleash deluges. Flash floods become more likely, as the ground cannot absorb the sheer volume of water so quickly. This supercharging of the water cycle is a direct consequence of rising global temperatures. Section 4. A torrent unbound global patterns of intensified rainfall. The evidence for this intensification of rainfall is not confined to one region. It is a global phenomenon, documented by weather stations and satellite data worldwide. From the monsoons of South Asia to the storm tracks of North America and Europe, we are seeing a clear trend. Heavy rainfall events are becoming more common and more extreme. In India and Bangladesh, monsoon patterns are shifting, bringing periods of intense, overwhelming rain. These downpours lead to widespread flooding, displacing millions and devastating agricultural lands. The life-giving rains are becoming life-threatening, a stark indicator of a system out of balance. This is a pattern repeated across continents, a global signature of a changing climate. In China, recent years have seen record-breaking floods along major river systems like the Yangtze. Cities that are home to millions have been inundated. The economic disruption is immense, but the human suffering is the true tragedy. Similarly, parts of Europe have experienced summer storms of unprecedented violence. What were once considered rare, extreme rainfall events are now occurring with alarming regularity. The sheer volume of water overwhelms drainage systems, leading to catastrophic urban flooding. Section 5. Regional Realities, the local scars of a global crisis. While the trend of intensified rainfall is global, its impacts are felt most acutely at the regional level. Each area faces a unique combination of geographical vulnerability, existing infrastructure, and societal preparedness. Coastal regions, for example, are on the front line. They face the double threat of heavier rainfall from storms and rising sea levels. This combination can lead to more frequent and extensive coastal flooding, saltwater intrusion into freshwater supplies, and erosion. Low-lying island nations and densely populated river deltas are particularly at risk. Their very existence can be threatened by these compounding pressures. The local scars are deep, often reshaping communities and ways of life. In mountainous regions, increased heavy rainfall can trigger devastating landslides and mudflows. Saturated slopes lose their stability, cascading downwards with terrifying force. Villages nestled in valleys can be buried, access routes cut off. The Himalayan region, the Andes, the Alps, all are seeing an increase in such hazards. The meltwaters from glaciers, also accelerated by warming, can further exacerbate flood risks downstream. Glacial lake outburst floods, or GLOFs, pose a sudden and severe threat to communities below. Section 6. The new norm. When unthinkable floods become commonplace. There was a time when we spoke of once-in-a-century floods, or even once-in-a-millennium events. These terms described deluges of such magnitude they were statistically expected to occur only rarely. But that language is rapidly becoming obsolete. The unthinkable is now becoming the disturbingly frequent. Floods that were once considered exceptionally rare are happening with alarming regularity in many parts of the world. This is not a statistical anomaly, it is a direct consequence of our altered climate. The baseline has shifted, and the goalposts for what constitutes an extreme event are moving. What does this mean in practical terms? It means that the flood defenses we built, the planning regulations we established, may no longer be adequate. They were often designed based on historical data, on a climate that no longer exists. A 100-year flood event now has a much higher probability of occurring within a shorter time frame. Perhaps it is now a 1 in 30-year event, or even more frequent in some vulnerable locations. Gap 3S, Section 7. The rising tide of destruction. As the floodwaters relentlessly advance, communities find themselves in a constant state of alert and reconstruction. The havoc wreaked by these floods is not just a matter of water levels rising, it's a story of lives disrupted and landscapes forever altered. Homes, schools, and hospitals, structures that took years to build, are wiped out in mere hours. Families are displaced, sometimes permanently, and the emotional toll is incalculable. The devastation extends beyond the immediate aftermath. As floodwaters recede, they leave behind a trail of destruction, mold-infested homes, contaminated drinking water, and fields rendered infertile. The psychological impact on survivors is profound, with many experiencing trauma and anxiety long after the waters have gone. The social fabric of communities is strained as neighbors and families grapple with loss and uncertainty. Yet amidst the chaos, stories of resilience and solidarity emerge. Volunteers flock to affected areas, strangers become allies, and communities band together to rebuild. But the question remains, how many more times can we endure this cycle of destruction and recovery? The rising tide of destruction is not just a natural disaster, it is a clarion call for urgent, decisive action. We can no longer afford to treat these floods as isolated incidents. They are a symptom of a much larger systemic issue, one that demands a global, coordinated response. As we face this new reality, we must ask ourselves, what kind of future do we want to build? One where we are perpetually reacting to disasters, or one where we proactively work to mitigate their causes and effects? The choice is ours, but the time to act is now. Gap 3S, Section 8. The Silent Threat. How underground water tables are rising unnoticed, setting the stage for future disasters. While the visible floods capture headlines and immediate attention, an insidious threat lurks beneath our feet, rising underground water tables. As climate change intensifies rainfall and alters global weather patterns, the water tables in many regions are steadily increasing. This phenomenon often goes unnoticed until it's too late, setting the stage for future calamities. Underground water tables, the reservoirs that lie beneath the Earth's surface, are crucial for agriculture, drinking water, and maintaining natural ecosystems. However, when these tables rise excessively, they can lead to a host of problems. Increased groundwater levels can cause soil saturation, making lands more susceptible to landslides and erosion. Infrastructure, such as roads and buildings, can suffer from foundational damage, leading to costly repairs and potential collapses. Moreover, rising water tables can infiltrate sewage systems and contaminate drinking water supplies, posing severe health risks to communities. Agricultural lands can become waterlogged, rendering them infertile and disrupting food production. The economic costs of these hidden disasters can be staggering, further straining already vulnerable communities. Yet, this silent threat remains largely overlooked in the broader conversation about climate change and flood management. As we focus on immediate visible impacts, we must also heed the warnings of these underground changes. Monitoring and managing groundwater levels are essential steps in preparing for and mitigating future disasters. The rising underground water tables serve as a stark reminder that the impacts of climate change are multifaceted and far-reaching. Addressing this hidden threat requires a comprehensive, proactive approach. By investing in better monitoring systems, sustainable land use practices, and innovative water management strategies, we can safeguard our communities from the unseen dangers lurking below. The time to recognize and act on this silent threat is now, before it erupts into the next wave of destruction. Section 9. The economic toll. The staggering costs of flood damage and the long-term economic impacts. Floods are not just a natural disaster, they are an economic catastrophe. Every year, the financial toll of flooding reaches into the billions, sometimes even trillions of dollars globally. The damage to infrastructure, homes, and businesses is immediate and severe. Roads, bridges, and buildings are washed away or heavily damaged, requiring extensive and costly repairs. But the economic impact doesn't stop at the immediate destruction. The long-term effects ripple through communities and economies. Businesses are forced to close, leading to job losses and economic downturns in affected areas. The cost of rebuilding and recovery puts immense strain on government budgets, often diverting funds from other crucial areas like education and healthcare. Insurance industries face tremendous pressure, as the frequency and severity of floods lead to skyrocketing claims. In some cases, insurance becomes unaffordable or unavailable, leaving homeowners and businesses without a safety net. The financial burden of flood damage often falls disproportionately on vulnerable populations, exacerbating existing inequalities. Agricultural losses can be devastating, disrupting food production and leading to higher prices and food insecurity. Floods can wipe out entire harvests, leaving farmers without income and communities without food. The economic toll of flooding is a powerful reminder of the urgent need for action. Investing in resilient infrastructure, effective flood management strategies, and sustainable land use practices can mitigate these costs and protect our economies from future disasters. The price of inaction is simply too high to ignore. Floods are not just numbers on a balance sheet. They are a human tragedy. Behind every statistic, there are real people whose lives have been turned upside down. Families are torn apart, homes are lost, and entire communities are displaced. The emotional toll is immeasurable. In one village, a mother clutches her child as they wade through waist-deep waters, their home now submerged. In another town, a family watches helplessly as the floodwaters consume their farm, their livelihood disappearing before their eyes. These are not isolated incidents. They are becoming increasingly common. The psychological impact is profound. The trauma of losing everything can lead to long-term mental health issues, including anxiety, depression, and PTSD. Children, in particular, are vulnerable. The disruption to their education and the loss of a stable environment can have lasting effects on their development and future prospects. Communities are left to rebuild from the ground up, often without adequate support. The social fabric is strained as neighbors struggle to help one another while dealing with their own losses. The sense of safety and security is shattered, replaced by a constant fear of the next flood. But amidst the devastation, there are stories of resilience and hope. Communities come together, showing incredible strength and solidarity. Aid workers and volunteers work tirelessly to provide relief and support. These acts of kindness and bravery remind us of our shared humanity and the importance of standing together in the face of adversity. The human cost of flooding is a stark reminder that climate change is not a distant threat. It is a present reality. It affects us all, but it falls hardest on the most vulnerable. We must listen to their stories, learn from their experiences, and take urgent action to prevent further suffering. The time to act is now, before more lives are upended and more communities are displaced. As we look ahead, the future of flooding appears increasingly dire. Climate models predict that the intensity and frequency of flooding events will continue to rise over the next decade. Warmer global temperatures will lead to more extreme weather patterns, with heavier rainfall and more powerful storms becoming the norm. Sea levels are expected to rise at an accelerated pace, exacerbating coastal flooding and increasing the risk of storm surges. Low-lying areas and island nations face an existential threat, with some regions potentially becoming uninhabitable within the next 10 years. Inland, the story is no less alarming. Rivers and lakes will overflow more frequently, inundating cities and rural areas alike. The disruption to agriculture could lead to food shortages and heightened competition for resources, further straining already vulnerable communities. Technological advancements and improved forecasting may offer some hope, providing early warnings and better preparation. However, without significant global efforts to curb greenhouse gas emissions and invest in resilient infrastructure, these measures may only serve as temporary relief. The projections paint a stark picture. If current trends continue, the next decade will see an escalation in the human and economic toll of flooding. It is a future that demands urgent and collective action to mitigate the impacts and adapt to the new realities of our changing climate. Section 7. Our drowning future. The imperative for action. The relentless rise in catastrophic flooding carries a devastating toll. Economically, the costs are astronomical. Billions, even trillions, are lost in damaged infrastructure, destroyed property, and disrupted economic activity. Insurance industries are strained, and governments face mounting bills for disaster relief and reconstruction. Businesses close, jobs are lost, and development gains can be wiped out overnight. This economic burden falls disproportionately on the most vulnerable nations and communities. Those least responsible for climate change often suffer its most severe consequences. The economic case for urgent action is, therefore, overwhelmingly strong. Beyond the financial costs, the ecological impacts are profound and often irreversible. Floods can destroy sensitive habitats, from wetlands to forests. They can contaminate water sources with pollutants, sewage, and debris. Wildlife populations are displaced or killed, and biodiversity suffers. Coastal ecosystems like mangroves and coral reefs, which offer natural flood protection, are themselves threatened. Soil erosion degrades agricultural land and silts up rivers and reservoirs.
If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you don't miss out on future ideas that challenge us to think outside the box. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below this video. What excites or worries you most about these advancements? Until next time, and don't forget to always maintain that curiosity that drives progress. Also, explore even more fascinating content on our channel. From life-changing tips and cutting-edge technology to the mysteries of spirituality, delicious recipes, health hacks, and language learning, there's something here to spark your curiosity and elevate your life. Dive in and discover a world of knowledge that awaits you.